Good evening, radio listeners, and welcome to another episode of the Sleepytime radio show. I'm your host, Robert Molly, though probably most of you know that already. You know, I started this radio show as a way to connect with the citizens of Asbury as a kind of fireside chat. Because I love this town and its people. Some people think it was my wife's idea to shore up support among our voters. I think the truth is that in my older age I just like to talk. And if you want to listen, I hope you'll stick around. I want to start today's show by telling you about a good friend of mine. His name is Arlington Bentwhistle, but you can call him Earl. He lives on the outskirts of Asbury, by Dream Dust Lake, that little pond offshoot of the Columbia River. He's a woodsman and a fisherman by trade, a world-weary fellow of the old America, a hunter and trapper, a man who makes his own way. 60 years ago he might have rode through the Old West with a big iron on his hip, and indeed he hails from a long-ago Texas childhood. What he sought here he won't tell me, perhaps a woman or the temperate mountain peaks. In the summer, when the weather is good, I make the journey up to his little grove by Dream Dust Lake on foot. It's a long hike, but it reminds me of the old days spent in wilderness with my father. My father was also a woodsman, you see, a hunter. I bring nothing, because when I arrive, Earl is always waiting for me, and he set out a fishing rod propped up, line already cast. He doesn't keep himself looking well, Earl. He's got long, mangy hair, a half-gray beard, and he wears an old boater hat. But he's a good companion, lets me do all the talking. As soon as I sit down at that dock, my feet dangling over the clear water of dream dust, he says the fish start biting, as if they're waiting for me. He speaks in his own way, Earl, a man determined to evade the shackles of civilization, an amiable effort, no howdy-doos or how's the wife. He communicates with grunts, mostly. Looks like a fish caught, Earl. Grunt. Wow, Earl, you sure caught a big one. Grunt. But he likes to listen to my stories. He asks me, tell me about Los Angeles. Tell me about New York. Tell me about Europe and Okinawa. You should see Earl's cabin. I can't say for sure he built it with his own 2 hands. Maybe it was left by settlers 100 years ago, the brave pilgrims on a journey of discovery who first populated these hills and mountains. The roof is sunken, the door cracked. There's no glass, and he's cut out canvas and cloth to stick over the windows to discourage the bugs. He cooks his game by the open fire. Every week, Bob has me deliver him canned foods, but I don't know if Earl even eats them. He prides himself on living off the land. He has a garden somewhere. I once spotted him munching on a cucumber. Earl is a part of this community. He lives on the land. He keeps to himself. He fishes. He trades in pelts and hides to make some money, mostly to buy cigarettes. He bothers no one, and yet there are those in this community who talk. They say he's a vagrant, a wild man, that he's rude and unfit for civilization. He doesn't fit into the fabric of what some people call Asbury. In my view, every quilt is made up of smaller threads, each different, but blending together to create unique textures, unique colors and shapes, forming a single image. What do you have without threads of different colors and sizes? A flat blanket. And I don't see Asbury as a flat blanket. I see it as alive, full of color and dimension. The world is beautiful because of its contrasts, its depths. This diversity isn't a weakness, it is not to be feared. I love stories, and I don't think the story of Asbury is one of a single kind of person. Yes, Earl has long hair. Yes, he has a scraggly beard. Yes, he speaks with a gruff accent. He grunts and rumbles like a mountain. But let me tell you what else Earl does. He makes lures, which he hands out to little boys who come to fish in his lake. He plants flowers in the meadow near his home. Every time I walk through, there are new colors sprouting up. He tames the wild blueberries and leaves out full baskets for the women who come to his meadows to gather reeds. He spends his time, like any other good citizen, serving his community. I don't know much about Earl, but I know he's a good man. That's all I need to know, really, about anyone. There's a petition going around our small community. A petition to quote-unquote refurbish the Dream Dust lakefront. It's clear to me what the actual purpose of this petition is. It urges the county to claim, by eminent domain, Earl's home. The petition mentions dilapidated structures which mar the landscape. It suggests that Dream Dust Lake should be landscaped, transformed into a public park. I know for a fact that nobody is interested in Dream Dust Lake as a park for swimming and recreation. We have the much larger and much closer Manatuka Lake for that. The sole purpose of this petition is to force a member of this community to give up their home. I urge anyone who is asked to sign this petition to decline, and explain that Earl is just as much a member of this community as anyone, and though he leads an alternative lifestyle, the strength of a community is in its diversity. The diversity of perspectives and experiences. That is the beauty of America. Well, that was quite a load. I do apologize for the heaviness of this episode, but I felt something must be said. Now, let's all ease back, pour ourselves a relaxing drink, and I'll share the news you won't read in the paper. The Leaky Spittoon had a terrific opening night, and the venue was so full that several hundred were milling about out front, listening to the echoes of the band leaking through the front door. I didn't attend that first concert personally, but my wife and I visited the theater the following afternoon to see its first ever screening of a feature film. And I have to say this picture made me a true Hitchcock believer. It's called Vertigo, and it just released this past May. What a picture! Action, suspense! It inspired me so much, and I hope I don't end up bringing too much into the Wan Spy Detective. The Spittoon will be showing Vertigo for the rest of the week, so see it while it lasts. The Leaky Spittoon also brought tourism to our little small town. Bob called me in for an emergency shift as an unexpected flood of Manatuka County citizens arrived from our neighboring towns. This has piqued the interest of our city council, who voted to create the first ever Asbury Tourism Board. The mayor had this to say about the new effort to boost the tourism business in Asbury. Asbury is an incredible mountain community, and we have a lot that will attract the Seattle city slickers. The beautiful, quiet forests, the rivers and lakes, the clean air. I believe that we can transform Asbury into a real tourist destination, and I'd like everyone to think about how we can make this town more attractive to visitors. In fact, we're having a special meeting of the City Council that is open to the public. We would love for you to bring all your ideas for how to improve the attractiveness of Asbury. I know there's also some skepticism about improving tourism in Asbury, and I want to reassure everyone that we by no means want to disrupt the ordinary way of life of our quiet farming community. But I do believe the expanding tourism will benefit all of our local businesses and potentially attract wealthy big city investors and entrepreneurs. Just imagine an Asbury ski resort up in the mountains and all the shops on Main Street swelling with customers. Everyone in our town should come together toward this goal. I see a bright future for Asbury, and I hope all of you see it too. That concludes the statement from the mayor. I hope to see all of you at the town meeting. I have a few suggestions for improving tourism myself. One word, Asburyans: coins. As you know, I have an extensive coin collection, coins from all over the world, and some from the distant past. I could see tourists from all over Washington coming to see my Civil War-era tokens and my early 19th century gold coins. I've got them all in my writing desk, individually packed in tiny baggies. But I could probably convert part of Bob's new hardware store into a small coin museum, or I could just convert my sitting room, using materials from Bob's hardware. In other news, the McCready Farm cow, Lollipop, has been recovered after a recent escape. Lollipop disappeared from the McCready Farm 2 days ago, and farmhand Thomas O'Leary speculated that the clever bovine chewed her way through a wooden fence. She apparently did this carefully, 1 day at a time, filing down the fence until it was weak enough for her to bash right through. She was found several miles away from the property, drinking from a mountain stream. She's been returned to the Macready farm, and the Macreadys have taken to calling her Countess Monte Cristo. And now we move to Bob's sales. After a recent run from tourists, Bob is running low on bottled water, fruit, and snack foods, but we're positively overflowing with produce. So our own Asbury broccoli is on sale, cheap as you can get it, 5 cents a pound. Also, grab yourselves some tomatoes, half price, and corn on the cob, which is 2 pennies per ear. Citizens of Asbury, do you put mayonnaise on your sandwiches? How about mustard? I'm a big fan of mayonnaise on a sandwich myself, and according to Gretchen Reynolds, there's no better mayonnaise than her homemade recipe. If you want to try the smoothest, creamiest, and most flavorful mayonnaise, head on down to Gretchen's Coffee and Bread, where she is serving up deli meat sandwiches with her homemade mayonnaise all day long. I know it's a popular spot among the high schoolers, because it's right across the street from Asbury High, on School Street. I'm sure you're all anxious to hear about my garden, and I'm sorry to report that I don't have much good news. An infestation of weevil larvae has munched through the roots of my herb plants, killing my basil, mint, and tarragon. Additionally, caterpillars came after my cherry tomatoes. Gardening sure is tough, I have to say. I'm thinking of consulting local farmers to ask for advice, though I have no interest in fancy synthetic pesticides, which is what the big farmers around here have started using. The one bright spot is that my blueberry bushes are flourishing, and I've got so many that I'm jarring them. These blueberry preserves will be available at the fair, but I might charge. Speaking of the fair, my wife has reported that we've had plenty of applications for booths, and I'm really excited to see everyone's ideas. I know for a fact that Mrs. Smith is bringing out her old ice cream maker, and Darlene Holt will be selling her crochet. And now for our nightly message from the mayor. She's just passed me the hastily scrawled document, so forgive me if I stumble on the words here. Let's see. Dear citizens of Asbury, the Manitoulin County Fair is just around the corner, so let's not forget to do our best to represent our happy village. To all parents, please ensure that your children understand the tenets of good county fair behavior. We have a 5-step system, which we're calling the TREAD system. Teach, remind, enforce, advise, discipline. Step 1 is teach. Make sure your children understand how they are to act at the fair. For young children, that means no running and screaming, waiting patiently for their turn at games and rides, and generally not being obstructive. For teenagers, that means being polite and careful. Respect the people and property of the fair. Remind is the second step. If your child starts to act out of line, remind them of how they should act. If they continue to disobey, you move to step 3, enforce how they should act. Command them. If they continue their disobedient behavior, advise them that they are about to face consequences. And finally, discipline. We recommend removing your child from the fair and dealing with them as you see fit. We don't want anyone to miss out on the fair activities, but we also don't want any embarrassment. There will be a bus service running from Asbury Main Street to the fairground. We recommend carpooling or other forms of transportation. Anyone with a booth will receive further instructions by mail. Going to be a crowded event, as people from all over Manitoulin County and beyond will be heading to Rocky Plain Park. I look forward to seeing each and every one of you there. For more information, please stop by City Hall, and we'll give you a fair flyer. They're also available at the Asbury Post Office. Also be sure to vote in the upcoming Asbury City Council emergency election, which is next Tuesday. As you probably know, Clark Boland abruptly resigned from his position as council president and swore vengeance on the other council members. Marjorie Thwack will replace him as council president, but his seat now needs to be filled. Running for the honor are Floyd Mullivan of Mullivan Estate Law, John Wickersham, a former justice of the Manitoulin Circuit Court, and Wendy Applebaum, a mother of 3 who wants you to know she makes a mean apple dumpling. Don't forget to vote, folks. And that's all from our mayor. I've got to say, I'm no political expert, but I trust any woman who makes a good apple dumpling. Now for our advertisements. Marigold's Butter Products, regular sponsor of the show, which, for complete transparency, means that Miss Marigold tells me what new products she has available when she's checking out at Bob's. She now sells cream and cream products, such as whipped cream, whipping cream, light cream, heavy whipping cream, buttermilk, and full-fat milk. Pick up Marigold's whipped cream, which is canned and pressurized, and totally 100% real cream, at your local grocer. Bob's got it in the fridge for 10 cents. You can get it sweetened or unsweetened, but either way, it's a great addition to a bowl of huckleberries. Dumpling's Diner has a new item on the menu, all-American fried chicken. No longer will you need to slave over a hot pot of oil in order to enjoy this delicacy. Dumpling will prepare her own recipe every day and serve it for lunch and dinner. I've tasted the chicken myself, and I don't know what she puts on it, but golly, you have got to try it. Have it alongside her famous sweet potato mash and, of course, a head of local broccoli. You know what happens now, radio listeners. I've already brought out my papers. I've been feverishly scribbling the next chapter of Luann Spy Detective. You should see the wall of my little sitting room. I've got the whole thing on a corkboard like Philip Marlowe. When last we left off, Luann rendezvoused with the local CIA agent in L.A. and learned that her mission was going to be a lot more complicated than she thought. We now return to Luann as she takes on the most difficult challenge of her career, becoming an actress. The director called the next actress into the room. He sat back, fingers tented. The woman who entered had long, raven-black hair tied with a crimson bow. A headshot was laid in front of him, and he glanced at her resume. A New York local, got her start in the theater circuit, worked with an up-and-coming director who was making a lot of noise. A recommendation from that director was underneath the resume. "She doesn't have any Hollywood experience," a producer whispered, "but MGM is looking for a new breakout star for the role of Marilyn." "She's got the looks," the director whispered back. He glanced up at the girl again. She was the first girl they auditioned who had no film experience. "Okay," he said. "Hello, my name is Lawrence Gaskill. I'm the director, and with me are Steve Arnold and Carrie Carmichael, the producer and our casting director." The girl squinted up at them. She was down on a stage, and the lights were up, pointing at her. She smiled. "Good to meet you," she said. "I'm Lola." "Where you from, Lola?" the director asked. "Originally, I'm from Syracuse, New York," Lola said, "but I moved to the city when I was 13 to pursue acting." "All right, Lola," said Lawrence. "You're reading for the part of Marilyn. We may also have you read for the part of Suzanne." Lola gave a curt nod. "Whenever you're ready, we'd like you to begin on page 3, line 4, which begins, 'I took the train.'" Lola glanced down at her script. "Whenever you're ready," Carrie said. He eased back. Lola began reading the part. She was a little tight. Nerves, the director thought. "You're pretty natural, Lola," the director said, "but loosen up." "She really is gorgeous," said Steve. "Perfect look for Marilyn." "I'm envisioning it," the director said. They had her read a few more parts. She wasn't great, but it wasn't anything a good director couldn't work with, and Lawrence was a good director. "Put her down for a callback," he told Carrie. "My thoughts exactly," said the casting director. "She's got talent," said Lawrence. "That's plain." They dismissed her and thanked her for her time. "We'll call you," they told her. Lola stepped out of the audition theater. She breathed a sigh. That audition had gone better than she'd thought. Or maybe it hadn't. "Right this way," said a production assistant. Lola stepped past the row of Marilyn hopefuls waiting patiently outside the theater. They all eyed her as she passed, like sharks. "Oh," Lola said, "I really need to use the bathroom." The production assistant frowned. "Okay," the young man said, "but you'll have to see yourself out. Don't get lost." Lola offered a coy smile. "I won't," she said. She followed the assistant's directions and found herself in a back hallway lined with offices. These back passages were totally empty. She found the restroom, but didn't head inside. Instead, she walked right past it and turned down another hallway. She stopped outside a door marked casting. From her purse, she pulled out a small skeleton key. Her back to the wall, she slipped the key in and unlocked the door. The small, cramped office was stuffed with overflowing file folders, filing cabinets in disarray, papers scattered everywhere. She located a folder marked Fundamental Optimism. She drew a small camera from her purse and snapped a photo of every resume in the file. Then she unplugged the phone line, secured a small adapter to the back, and plugged it back in. A moment later, she slipped out. As she passed the bathroom, a man stepped out, and they nearly collided. "Whoops," said the man, sidestepping her. "Sorry there." He looked her up and down. "Hey, you're that Lola we just auditioned. What are you doing back here?" Lola blinked. "I'm sorry, I was looking for the bathroom." The man cocked an eyebrow. "Well, you found it, right behind me. I'm Lawrence, by the way." He offered her a hand, which she took. "You're the director," Lola said. "Yes, that's right," Lawrence said. He gave her a pearly smile. He was younger than she'd imagined, brown hair slicked back, a set of tortoise-shell glasses. "I'd stop and chat, but I've got more ladies to audition." "More identical me's," Lola said. "Nah," he said. "None of them look like you. You've got charm. All these girls are L.A. girls. They've been here forever, pouring coffee and practicing their vocal warm-ups. Anyway, I got a dash." He started down the hallway, and Lola pushed open the bathroom door. "Say," he said, turning around, "you like it here in L.A.?" Lola blinked. "Haven't been here long enough to know," she said. "But if I'm being honest, so far it's not my favorite place." "Good," he said. "A good actress can't like L.A. If it gets into your head, you end up like Norma Desmond." "Good to know," Lola said. "I'll make sure to hate L.A." Lawrence laughed. "Hope to see you again, Lola," he said. Then he was gone. She stepped into the bathroom, waited 30 seconds. She caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror. Formerly straw hair, now a deep brunette, face contoured, eyebrows done. She barely recognized herself. 5 minutes later, she was climbing into the passenger seat of a brown sedan. "How'd it go?" Fix asked as he pulled them into L.A. traffic. "Well," Luann handed him the camera. "There's a lot of great actresses gunning for this part, though." "Well, they don't have the CIA on their side," Fix said. "I feel bad," Luann said. "This could be some actress's big break, but we're robbing it right out from under them." "Good actresses don't succeed in Hollywood," Fix said. "Just pretty ones." "What's our next step?" Luann said. "Secure you that part," Fix said. "Make you look like a rising star. That should get the attention of the Boulevard Club." Luann nodded. "Right. But how exactly are we going to secure that part?" "Leave that to me," Fix said. "You just keep looking like you do, and keep up those acting lessons." For the past month, Luann had been taking acting lessons with an exclusive acting coach. Cardinal collected favors with the Hollywood elite, and he was calling them in left and right. Fortunately, Luann discovered that she quite liked acting. It wasn't much different than what she did in her work. Playing a part, acting natural. Maybe in another life, she really could have been some Hollywood star. Fix dropped her off at the hotel she was staying in. Not the Hotel Royale. She knew better than to go back there. This hotel was closer to Hollywood, a popular place among young actresses looking to get their start. She headed upstairs to a small garret room. They had agreed on lowly accommodations. A struggling artist generally didn't occupy the finest living arrangements, so she stayed in the chilly garret. As soon as she settled into her room, a knock came at her door. Standing in the hall was Susan, a bubbly girl who couldn't have been more than 18. She gave Luann a red-lipped smile. "Hi," the girl said. "Sorry to jump on you as soon as you got home, but I just have to know how that audition went." Lola waved her inside. "Terrific," she said. "You wouldn't believe it, Susie. I met the director. He was so young." Susie sat on Lola's bed, a starstruck look in her eye. "You met Lawrence Caskill?" "Sure did," Lola said. "I just happened to run into him, outside the bathroom." "You lucky girl, you," Susie said. Susan had introduced herself to Lola the day she'd moved in. They were both hopeful actresses, and Susan had promised to show Lola the ropes in L.A. "I'm so proud of you," she said. "I mean, of course you're going to do well with your background. I'm trying not to be jealous." Susie let out a nervous laugh, and Lola felt a twinge of shame. Not everyone had the CIA looking after them, and she felt bad for making this sweet girl think she was just unlucky. Your chance is coming soon, Lola said. I bet, Susie said. 10 auditions in 2 years and nothing to show for it. I'm starting to think I should hang up the corset. She shook her head. Sorry, you don't want to hear about my woes. Lola patted her shoulder. Nonsense. I'm sure you've got a big break coming. Hope so, Susie said. Lola, a voice shouted from down the hall. Call for you. Susie and Lola shared a meaningful glance. Coming, darling, Lola called. She rushed down to the communal phone, and the landlady handed it off to her. Susie was hot on her heels. The girl covered her mouth with both hands while Lola brought up the receiver. Hello? A voice on the other end asked if he was speaking to Lola Ferguson. She answered that he was. She listened, then said thank you, and hung up the phone. Susie peered at her. They want me to come back, Lola said, a grin spreading across her face. They want me to read for Marilyn again. Susie squealed and threw her arms around Lola. All right, the landlady said. She was a stern woman and looked like an old turtle in her oversized blouse. Sorry, darling, Susie said. Come on, let's celebrate. Susie pulled Lola out the front door. Step one down, Luann thought, but she knew that all this was the easy part. The hard part started when she got in the movie. That would also be when things started getting dangerous. She followed Susie down to the corner luncheonette, where they would order malted chocolate shakes and barely sip them. No sense worrying 8 steps down the road. She focused on her acting. Soon she would become Marilyn. So ends another chapter of Luann Spy Detective. I hope you enjoyed it. And with the end of my story, so ends our time together. As always, have a beautiful evening. Enjoy the summer stars, and sleep well, dear Asbury. Always sleep well tonight, so you are ready for what tomorrow brings. And that's all for me. Good night.